Welcome back, everybody. I decided in this video that I was going to ask my family some questions. It was a hard adjustment of when you figured out I had epilepsy. What are your feelings towards epilepsy? What is the most frustrating thing about epilepsy, and how have you adapted to me having epilepsy? The reason why I asked these questions was really that way you guys can get an insight of how epilepsy just doesn't affect the person that has it, it affects their family and their friends. I might do one with my friends later on, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video.
Okay, so my sister Ashley, she wanted me to answer some of these questions. So the first question is, was it a hard adjustment when my family figured out that she had epilepsy? I think it was a little bit hard because I didn't really know what epilepsy was. It was, I think, about 5th or 6th grade when I figured out, so I was kind of confused, wondering, because I was always told that it was asthma that she had, so I was just like, oh, lots of people have asthma. So I think it was kind of a weird adjustment. It wasn't like terribly hard. The second question was, what are your feelings towards epilepsy? I mean, it's just something that lots of people have. I feel like it's kind of crazy just like having your brain kind of like malfunction for a sec or something like that. I think it's a little bit crazy that it does that. Number 3, what is the most frustrating thing about epilepsy? I think that probably the doctors were most frustrating with me and not knowing what were causing the seizures. That was pretty hard because, I mean, like, imagine having somebody that you love go through something where she's just sitting on a desk or somewhere just not knowing that she's having a seizure or can't say anything or respond in any way. I think it's pretty frustrating that some of the doctors didn't even check for epilepsy. They just automatically went to that it was asthma, so I thought that was pretty frustrating. Number 4, and the last question was, how have you adapted to Ashley having epilepsy? I think our family's adapted pretty well. It's not like a crazy huge thing that it totally tore our family apart. It's been pretty good. We finally figured out a few medications that can help control her epilepsy and her having seizures. It was pretty hard to adapt in the first place. Because, I mean, picture having somebody in your family that you really love that has to go through these hard things. It's pretty hard. Just having her adapt to it also was pretty hard because she was going through this crazy time in her life where she didn't know what was happening to her. So that's all the questions for now, and hope you enjoy.
Was it a hard adjustment when I figured out that Ashley had epilepsy? Yes, to begin with. I wasn't around. I was in a different state at that time when they finally figured out that Ashley had epilepsy. So yeah, there was a little bit of an adjustment, just the idea of like, okay, what exactly does that mean? And obviously she had dealt with it before, like she had gone through what epilepsy was doing to her. Again, we had thought that it was asthma. So I knew that she would be okay. It was just weird hearing that it was epilepsy and being like, okay, so this is exactly what it is now, instead of some allergy asthma thing. So what are my feelings towards epilepsy? Honestly, at this point, it's just kind of been a part of who Ashley is at this point. It doesn't define her. It's something that she has and something that I feel like has taken and gone leaps and bounds with, again, making these videos and putting the awareness out. She does very well. She doesn't limit herself and be like, well, I can't do that because I have epilepsy. She's willing to go and do all that she can with it. What's the most frustrating thing about epilepsy? For other people, it is very hindering. And there is that little moment or a little fear in the back of your head, like wondering like, okay, like, you know, we're doing things with Ashley, or, you know, what can happen, or what happens if she does have a seizure, you know, what to do then. And just kind of like that general concern of like, okay, if we go someplace, there's always a risk. How have I adapted to Ashley having epilepsy? Honestly, you just got to treat him just the same. You treat Ashley the same. You don't treat her like fragile, anything fragile. She knows what she can and can't do. You just have to respect that and make sure that you just be aware. And honestly, like for her, loud noises and bright things kind of hurt her head. So just being aware that like, okay, we're going to go to a movie theater, make sure we bring earplugs, or we're going to go to some sort of concert, make sure that, she has eye protection, that sort of thing. So it's just little things. You make small adjustments, you love them just the same.
What was a hard adjustment of when we figured out Ashley had epilepsy? Honestly, she was just taking her medications. She was just figuring out what was supposed to be done with her epilepsy, and that was kind of hard to deal with because there were just so many different things, like her heart monitor she had to keep track of, and she was limited to what she could do with me and with the family. What are your feelings towards epilepsy? I'm sad that Ashley has it, but I'm glad that we figured out what it is and how to control it. What is the most frustrating thing about epilepsy? Probably actually suffering through a seizure, which I do not know of. Have you adapted to Ashley having epilepsy? I've accepted the fact that she can't watch Incredibles 2 or see any bright flashing lights. Another thing, adapting to Ashley having epilepsy is probably she's not able to do specific things, and sometimes loud noises will make her just go away from a certain area where the noises are because it just kind of hurts her head.
So I'm Ashley's mom. Question number 1, what was a hard adjustment when we figured out that Ashley had epilepsy? I would have to say the hardest adjustment was figuring out how to make sure she didn't feel like she was like couldn't do anything. You know what I mean? Like you get set thinking, I've got this thing and it's limiting me, and our job as parents was kind of to make sure that she knew she was still able to go ahead and do the things that she wanted to do without worrying all the time. I know it's really hard and stressful for her because she still worries about, having a seizure at some point. But that was, I think the hardest adjustment was that. And then also figuring out how, that she had it, because it was just such a long road to figuring that all out. What are your feelings towards epilepsy? So I didn't know much about it until after Ashley got diagnosed with it, and we did some research, and at first it was scary to me. Sitting in the doctor's office hearing that she had this, I had in my mind like a future that was a little bit different than what I'd planned for her, and it was like kind of an overwhelming feeling listening to the doctor tell her about epilepsy. And so my feelings toward it, I was scared and worried, and I wondered how much of it was going to change what she had planned on doing in her life. But now it's changed a little bit. I know that it's still a possibility that she can have a seizure at any time, but I still feel like she's gotten ahead of it a little bit, so she understands it a lot more than at the very beginning. And she also, I also feel that she is a strong person now from it. The things that she's had to go through to get her diagnosis and the things afterwards, being diagnosed with it is one thing, living with it is another thing. And she's been able to do both and do it in such a great way that I feel like it's kind of made her who she is. And so my feelings toward it is it's kind of a strengthening thing. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but obviously I would like the people who have it, to know that they can continue to be who they are and not worry about it, not let it limit them, I guess I should say. What is the most frustrating thing about epilepsy? I think the most frustrating thing for me as a mom is watching your child have a seizure. It's so hard. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And when we didn't know what was happening with her and didn't know how to figure out, we hadn't figured out her medication yet, she was having them so frequently, and I was just very worried all the time and frustrated by the fact that I didn't know how to fix it. How have you adapted to Ashley having a seizure or having epilepsy? I think I've adapted to having a daughter with epilepsy in that I've had to cope differently. When she has a seizure, I have to push aside my feelings and my worries and the stuff that's going on in me and take care of her. And it's kind of made me stronger, I guess, and also it's helped me to I guess it's just strengthened me as a person to be able to not worry so much about myself and to watch and help somebody else. I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Hi, this is Ashley's dad. Question number 1. What was a hard adjustment of when we figured out I had epilepsy? Hard adjustment was probably trying to figure out how to deal with how her first bit of medication made her feel, because it was really hard watching her go from a normal person to being the way she was on her medication. Really sleepy, grouchy. It was like a different person. What are your feelings towards epilepsy? I guess it's just like any other type of an ailment. It's just something that you have to learn how to react towards it, and how to, I guess every sickness has boundaries, and you have to learn those boundaries, and epilepsy is just one that you have to learn, like anything else, whether you have, like some other physical ailment. You have to learn the boundaries and just to accept it, I guess. The most frustrating thing about epilepsy is probably the inability to cure it or to stop it. Because when you see someone having a seizure, it's definitely you get a sense of hopelessness, like there's nothing you can do about it, and you have to just sit there and let your kid or whoever relation to you suffer through it. So how have you adapted to me having epilepsy? I think it's made me stronger in the fact of just coming to the terms that it's happened. We have to make sure we instill the habits that you got to take better care of yourself when you can't stay out late or certain things, taking your medication so that you don't have those episodes at that young. Being on a constant medication is obviously something that can be difficult for a younger kid to take, because I guess when you're young you feel like you're invincible to everything. So getting in that habit of having to take something all the time to make it so you can function is probably one of the hardest things to adapt to. So that's it.
So I forgot to make an outro to my video, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to the insight that my family had on me having epilepsy. Go ahead and subscribe, that would be great. Also, go ahead and refer my channel to anybody that has epilepsy that you know of, like family members or friends. That way we can kind of have a little community and stuff. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I love you all. Thank you. Bye.